All right, we're in the Service Performance Management with Industrial IoT section. All right, the agenda is I will give a little bit of an introduction, no more than 10 minutes, kind of set the stage a little bit. Then we'll have three speakers who will talk about their case story, their application. There'll be 20 minutes apiece. And then after that, we will have a Q&A panel. And the suppliers who helped out those customers with their solution will join the panel. So there'll be a total of 6 people on the panel. All right. So let me give a little bit of an introduction. IoT drivers, industrial IoT drivers. So we did a survey, this is Q2 2004, a year and a half ago or so. And the primary drivers around industrial IoT, number 1 is reduced downtime. Number 2, more rapid response. So there's a definite tie to service performance management, that field service function to improve the performance of the field service organization to assure that there's high uptime for the equipment. Now, I'll just give you the current business model as we see it in terms of the adoption of industrial IoT in the field service environment. What is occurring is in the more traditional way is you sell products, and the typical OEM will sell a pump, a product, and the service is really, for the most part, is limited to spare parts and maybe some consulting around proper selection and stuff like that. With industrial IoT, that changes rather dynamically. Because the OEM knows the equipment so well, they are able to create algorithms that can predict failure and assess the health and notify the customer when it will fail so that some corrective action can be taken. So we see a model here where there is an opportunity for post-sale support, post-sale services, fairly high margin, and kind of a continuing annuity. So if we look at GE, for example, the whole digital approach with GE, what Jeff Elmelt is promoting, is all around selling additional services. Jeff has stated publicly to the financial community that the current margin in the industrial sectors is 18%. He's going to get it up to 20% over the next few years. And his primary path to that is through selling post-sale services at high margin. So the right side is Jeff Elmelt's, in a nutshell, business plan. So let me talk this through a little bit. This slide is a little complex. So the traditional approach is you ship it, it's installed. The OEM really never knows if the customer is happy. And when I was an end user and I had equipment and I started having problems with the equipment, usually it was a heated phone call to the manufacturer. Their equipment has a problem. And if when I needed another piece of equipment, I didn't buy that one because it was a huge customer satisfaction issue. So you got this send and pray type of approach, and with no real way to understand how happy the customer is. Now with the connected asset, data goes back to the machine vendor, and there's a couple of things that happen just with having access to real operating data. In the traditional approach, the OEM would put the equipment on a test stand internally, and that's the only way they got data from the machine about its performance. Now with IoT, they get real operating data. And in the case of Cummins, for example, the primary reason they did IoT was to get real operating data so they can improve their design. By improving their design, they could get a core competitive advantage against other diesel engine suppliers and grow their market share. So this line here is all around improved design, quality control, and of course, because you have some sense of what's going on, you can prevent a small problem from growing into a much larger problem and control your warranty costs. And those are the kind of benefits that Cummings reported to me when I wrote a case story about them, as an example. Now, this has also been extended to the condition monitoring and selling the services. And part of it is you could just alert the user that's a problem, or sometimes you could do the OEM does the field service either directly themselves or through a local distributor. And we get to nirvana being nearly no downtime. And this much higher customer satisfaction means that this OEM, who does the condition monitoring and the IoT, has a much higher chance of getting the second order for additional equipment. Improved revenue. So we get improved revenue from two aspects. One is higher customer satisfaction and additional sales, and another one from the aftermarket services. And just to go through this in another view, in the old way, you would, if, this is a capital I, capital F, if the OEM was doing the field service for it, what you would have is you'd have a problem occur, equipment downtime at a service, and typically would be two pass in repair. One pass to do an inspection, to know what spare parts are needed and what skills are needed, and then you do the repair. So this would take maybe a couple of weeks, probably. And we all know that 2 weeks of equipment running, no production, no revenue, is totally unacceptable. So that's why we have maintenance, on-site maintenance in the first place, because this model just wouldn't work. Now, with IoT, you monitor it through the web, you assess the problems, you do the work order management through the web, and repair. So we see a problem identification. It isn't down, but we have identified that a problem is going to occur. They plan the repair, so it's planned downtime rather than unscheduled downtime. And then this is where the problem would have occurred if nothing would have happened. So it becomes a one-pass repair and planned so it doesn't interrupt production. And we've had various discussions with OEMs who are on this path, and anywhere from 30 to 80% of the repairs are actually done through the web without making a visit. So that has turned out to be a bonus in terms of margin that the OEMs hadn't anticipated. So this approach becomes much more conducive to the potential of outsourcing maintenance by the end user. So as we go forward in the future and we get the aging workforce and more difficult to hire people who work in a manufacturing environment, or as equipment gets more and more complex and the physics, the science inside the equipment clearly goes beyond the capability of a general purpose on-site maintenance person to repair, it becomes more and more possible and more credible to outsource that maintenance to the OEM. Okay, that's my introduction. So next, we'll have Matt come up, then Ron, and then Sean. And just to go through the agenda, when they're done, Sabush, Stephen, and Brian will join us on the podium for the Q&A session.